My fellow Nerdkins, welcome back to another episode of the Jank Tank. Today we've got another deck profile for you, and it's going to be the winning deck from our last video. It's going to be Raditz Brotherly Revival. So on the front side, on the front side, when you swing, your opponent warps a card from their hand, and then you have an activate main that you can search the top 5 for a Raditz, Nappa, or Vegeta card and add it to your hand, or with energy cost of 3 or less. Oh no, just Raditz, Vegeta, or Nappa card, red or green, add it to your hand and shuffle your deck, and if you added a card to your hand, you pitch a card from your hand. And then you awaken at 4 life, or when you have a Unison on board with an energy cost of 3, you can awaken, and then to awaken you restand a life, draw a card, flip this card over. He retains the ability to warp a card on swing, and then he gains the ability that if your opponent has 4 or more non-black cards in their warp, then he gains critical. He also has an auto that you place 4 non-black cards from your opponent's warp at the bottom of their deck in any order, and at the start of your main phase, this card gets triple attack. So it becomes a triple attacker with critical. The Unison that we're running is 4 copies of SS3 Nappa Golden Invader. Its +1 is to force your opponent to warp a card from hand. Why is this not focusing? The -2 allows you to choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost greater or equal to their current energy and KO them. I never really use that. And then the -3 the -3 you pay for energy, and if your leader is a Nappa or green Saiyan card, choose up to 1 red or green multicolored Raditz card with an original energy cost of 8 in your hand and play it. So that's the Saiyan Scramble SCR, but that's not what I run in this deck. 1, because I don't own it, and that's actually the only reason why, because if I did own it, I would run it in this deck, if I'm being 100% honest. And then, start off with our 1 cost. We're running 4 copies of Vegeta Elite Resolve. What he does is he's a 1 cost, and if you have a field on the board, he gains blocker. And when you play him, you get to search out the field, which is Vegeta's Powerball. If your leader is a green Saiyan, you get to play this card for free. But we'll get into what this card does in a little bit. But you'll with this Vegeta, you get to either search out that field from the deck or search the top 5 for a 3 cost or less Saiyan. Green Saiyan, right? Yeah, a green Saiyan, but any Saiyan, all the Saiyans in here are green. There's a couple multicolors, but they're all green, so it doesn't matter. The multicolor part doesn't matter. And then we're running 4 copies of Raditz Ruthless Adversary. This is our draw power for the deck, because for every 2 non-black cards in your opponent's warp, you get to draw a card. So if they have 4 in there, you get to draw 2 cards. If they have 8 in there, you get to draw 4 cards, so on and so forth. So he is the draw power for the deck, because if you hadn't noticed, the leader itself does not draw on swing, either on the front side nor the back side. And then we're going to get into our super combo, which is Vegeta the Lone Prince, because you pay 1 to play him out, which makes your opponent pitch a card from hand. And then at 4 less life, you get to draw a card when you combo with it, because it's a super combo. Now here's 1 of 2 multicolor cards in the deck. We're running Vegeta Omnipotent Elite. It is a check land if your opponent has 5 or less cards in hand. It also draws when it's played. It's a blocker, a dual attacker, and when you activate blocker or at the end of your turn, you get to switch this card to active mode, and it's a 16k. I don't typically play it to the field very often, but when I do get to play it to the field, it is a really good card, because it is a dual attacker that restands itself and can be a dual blocker as well. Now, on the front side of the leader, there was the top 5 search that if you pick a card and add it to your hand, you have to pitch a card from your hand, and that card is Ribrianne Punishing Passion, because this deck is very heavy into hand control. It's very, very heavy into hand control. So what Ribrianne does is, when you warp her from your drop by paying 2 energy, your opponent pitches 2 cards from hand. Pretty simple, very effective. And then since your opponent is going to pretty much have a much lower hand size than they're used to, we're running 4 copies of King Cold Supreme Ruler. It is a floodgate. You pay 1 when you have, or you pay 1 less for each field that you have on the board. It's a 3 cost, so if you play out the Vegeta's Powerball and then you also play out a Z extra, it has its cost reduced to 1. So you pay 1 energy, and then your opponent can't attack your leader card unless they pitch a card from hand. And since your Unison's a 20k, a lot of times, especially early game, your opponent's not going to want to swing into your Unison because they're going to need to spend resources in order to deal damage to it, and you're already starving them of resources by ripping them from their hand already. Speaking of ripping from their hand, running 4 copies of Raditz Pulling Ahead. When your opponent has 2 or more energy, or is it 3 or more? 2 or more energy, that's what I thought. When your opponent has 2 or more energy, you pay 1 energy to play this guy out, and when he deals damage, you get to warp a battle card from your opponent's field, and then they warp 1 from hand. And then he has an activate main that if you pay 2 energy and pop him off the board, you get to play a red-green Vegeta from your hand. Yeah, 1 red-green multicolor Vegeta or Nappa with 20,000 powers from your hand. And then we're running 4 copies of Grade 8 Vegeta Embodied Might, because when you have the field on the board, if you have a blocker Vegeta that gets KO'd in battle, you can pay 1 and search this guy out from your deck and play it in rest mode. So that's going to be this Vegeta, and this Vegeta also counts. You play him in rest mode, and when that happens, or when he swings, he rips a card from your opponent's hand, and he's a 20k blocker, as well as having the limit 1 when one of your green non-grade 8 Vegeta cards with blocker is removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill. You may play this card from your hand, so if you have it in your hand and your opponent removes this Vegeta or this Vegeta from the board by skill, you can play this out for 1 energy. Or, if you have a field extra card on board, you can pay 2 to play it out just straight from your hand. Moving right along, we're gonna get into our other multicolor card. It's going to be Vegeta Saiyan Elite. This is the one that you can use the Raditz to play from your hand if you have it in your hand. When he swings, your opponent warps 2 cards from hand, right? Yeah, chooses 2 cards in the hand, sends them to their warp, and it's also got an ability that if you pay 2 energy, 1 red, 1 green, it'll deal 1 damage if your leader is a green Saiyan, which Raditz obviously is. Running 3 copies of Father-Son Solidarity, because it is barrier removal and more board control. Or, I mean, not board control, hand control. So, if you're keeping track, hand control, 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 hand control. Like I said, very, very, very heavy into the hand control in this deck, including the SCR, Celzino. Been around for a very, very long time. At 5 energy, you play this guy out for a successor, which is fairly easy to do in this deck because you can have a Father-Son Solidarity on the board as well as an Ape, or Father-Son Solidarity as well as a Raditz, or multiple combinations, Father-Son Solidarity, King Cold, Vegeta, many combinations to be able to successor. Oh wait, sorry. Yeah, no, that's 12. Quad Strike, Dual Attack, rip cards from hand, Celzino. So, like I showed earlier in the video, Vegeta's Powerball is the field. He gets to play for free if your leader is a green Saiyan, and for 1 energy if your non-grade 8 Saiyan card is KO'd by an attack, and you choose a grade 8 card that includes the color and character name of the KO card with an energy cost of 4 in your deck and played in rest mode, then shuffle your deck. So that'd be this Vegeta or this Vegeta playing out this Vegeta. And then at the end of your turn, he restands 1 of your grade 8s. So since there is only 1 grade 8, that's the only one that matters. But since he's a blocker, it helps, because he gets to swing, rip the cards from hand, and then activate blocker as well. Speaking of more hand control, since it is a green Saiyan, another Floodgate, Uneasy and Awakened Rage, because with this deck, if you don't have your defenses set up, you will get run over. Plain and simple. And playing against the black deck, it's a huge struggle. It's almost an auto loss if you come up against the black deck, which is why this deck doesn't really see a whole lot of play, because otherwise I think this deck would be very, very strong. And then for a little bit more added defense, we got 2 copies of Homie Clones. Those are the token negates for whoever doesn't know. Now, the Z extra card that we're running in order to make Arcane Cold cheap enough to play for 1 is Limit Ultra Kamehameha Mighty Blast, because it's 1 energy, 1 Z energy, and it's added defense plus removal. It's just a good generic card overall. We're running 3 copies of Jiren the Immovable, because he allows you to keep a 5 or less on the board. Makes it so it can't be removed by skills, so you can do that with the Raditz or the 8 Vegeta or anything this side. So it can be really helpful to keep your board presence in order to be able to have more rippability available to you. 3 copies of Frieza Resurrected Ambition for more board removal and more hand control, because when one of your green cards attacks, you pop the energy and they rip the card from hand. And then we're running 1 copy of Surmounting the Impossible for more filterability, just in case you're not seeing your Unison, or you need to get down to that 4 life, or you just need to see something in your deck that you are having trouble seeing. Surmounting is there to try and help you. But that is the deck profile. Go ahead and smash that like button, comment, and subscribe, and stay nerdy.